feel like I'm so off to the side. I need to like push this over a little bit. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for stopping by. As always, my name is Eli. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we do live Q&As where we talk about what the previous video title is all about. However, you don't have to ask questions just pertaining to the title. You can ask questions about just about anything. Before we jump into it, as always, we do weekly giveaways. All you have to do to enter is leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe. And outside of that, if you want to take advantage of the prices for Pokemon product, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and so much more at wholesale, I highly recommend you join the Patreon. Links down in the description below. But let's do a shout out to the people that are here so far. Let's give a shout out to Collectible Accounting, Electric, Senpai, Pika, Glorious, Tori, Amori, and Kashmira, and then Fem. Shout out to you guys that are here so far. So, is there an actual problem with Pokemon, or is this clickbait? No, I'm being dead serious. I mean, obviously, the title of the video, you can consider it to be clickbaity because of the way I titled it, but I'm being dead honest. Like, I think there is a problem with what Pokemon is doing. If you look at the history of the last 3 generations, 4 generations now? Last 4 generations. Wow. We've always had a problem where Scarlet and Violet, Sun and Moon, XY, and Sword and Shield have had a terrible time with their first 3 sets, and one of them always being a Charizard set. And it's just completely lackluster. Just no innovation there. And I understand it's better that they're bringing in SIRs, but even then, like, there could have been a way in which a base set wasn't going to just be terrible, right? Like, they could have added cool characters, or with Obsidian, right? They could have added more than just a Charizard, but they decided not to. So it's a problem that I think the Pokemon company has. And this isn't just Pokemon USA. Like, this is Pokemon Japan, because we obviously just follow whatever the sets are that are being released in Japan, and we just combine whatever's most convenient. Like the next set, we're going to talk about this on tomorrow's video, but it's literally a combination of 3 sets put into one because of the timing of when the sets are going to be released, which is going to be in September and October, and our set's going to be in November. Whereas for them, it's entirely different because their Obsidian Flame set is only 1, and ours are Ruler of the Dark Flame, which means we're only going to have 1 because there's not a set that we can, release within that time. Is it Pokemon or the distributors? I'm sorry. It's Pokemon for sure. It's 100% Pokemon. It has nothing to do with distributors. Listen, distributors are going to distribute. I know everyone likes to crap on distributors for valid reasons. Shout out to Mason from Cardinal Gaming. There are very many valid reasons to crap on distributors. And I can think of a ton within the past couple of weeks from my own personal experience. So, yeah, but this video was not supposed to be shooting at... watch the video. Obviously, it was supposed to be posted on Monday. I've been super duper busy, so I wasn't able to get it out till Tuesday. I apologize. It's going to be a live day and a video day, but it's definitely more or less just me discussing the problem that Pokemon has and how it's going to need to address it in the future by coming out with like more innovative things early on. Because when you have a cycle that people are trying to, how do I want to say this? When you have a new cycle of a new generation and you just increased MSRP for that cycle, and then you say, hey, we're going to increase MSRP and we're going to try and make up for it by doing absolutely nothing about it, it's kind of frustrating for a lot of people, right? Because you need to have that kind of value equation where it makes the most sense. Because if you're just saying to yourself, hey, I want to increase the price of MSRP, but with that, we're going to make it where the next couple of sets are going to be amazing sets that are going to have cards that are ridiculously expensive, then you're going to feel like there's a value to it. But if it's just we're increasing the price of MSRP and wholesale, which is what causes the booster box prices to go up drastically and have a much higher of a floor, while at the same time giving crappy product that people don't care about, then it's just going to make for product that's more expensive than it should be based on the increase at wholesale pricing, right? And that's kind of more or less the point that I'm making. There was an issue with it restarting after the 2-minute mark. That's weird. I put it for 7 minutes. I had a timer. That's weird. I never added any minutes. That's kind of funny. How much to buy, Eli? I mean, his company. I'm really confused at what you mean by that question. Is Canada real? Canada is real for certain, but I don't know if China is real or Australia is real. I think they're both kind of fake. Good afternoon. Thanks, Fernando. Hopefully you have a good one. In for the party, baby. What's up, Pika Pika? Dude, I saw your message. I had no clue you've never won a giveaway. It's so funny. I feel like everyone's won a giveaway, and then I hear a couple of people that are like, I've never won a giveaway, and I'm like, what? Really? Was Evolving Sky the shortest printed set in Sword and Shield? That's the only set Pokemon Center could not keep stocked. So I want people to understand, just because they couldn't keep stock doesn't mean that it wasn't short printed, right? So in terms of overall short printed set, by far the most short printed set in the Sword and Shield era was Rebel Clash, for sure. And that was because production got cut really short, like midway into its print because of COVID. Whereas when it came to reprints for Evolving Skies had 3-wave reprints, which usually is how it was during COVID. But they also had an additional reprint wave that they threw out to us over the over winter, and then they also gave us another reprint, tiny reprint nonetheless, but in August of last year. So it was actually printed a decent amount. What's up, Hermit? Good to see you, brother. Eli told me to, so I just got some Paldeas for under 95. Hey, it's a good price. It's a good price. How long do you think Pokemon will keep alt arts and sets? Surely they need to innovate again at some point. Keep it fresh. I think they're going to keep alternate arts. Here's my thing, right? And we're going to talk about this on tomorrow's video. But there is a shiny set that is expected to come out. It's our next set. It's coming out in December for Japan. I can't remember exactly when it's coming out in English yet, but it comes out in the next couple of months after the recent Japanese set in October, right? I would not be surprised if we get a shiny alternate art set. I think that they're going to kind of milk that for the first time. I could be wrong, right? It would make sense they did that, though. Just be the first time they've done it. And they're going to try and make it even crazier than 151 because they need to keep the hype available. And they know that right now, I don't think they're idiots. I don't think the Pokemon company's idiots. I think they understand what's going on in the market. I think they made a mistake, or maybe it's because they pre-plan things so far in advance, it's hard for them to time certain things, right? But regardless, I think that they're looking at it and they're like, all right, well, we're going to look at the hype and we're going to say, how can we kind of bring it back into the hobby? And I think this is what they're going to do with the next 151 following up with the shiny set, right? So I think you're going to see alternate arts play into that, and it would not surprise me if they just continued alternate arts for at least the rest of Scarlet and Violet. And it's no longer, I think it's no longer going to be a question of whether alternate arts are going to be in every set. I think it's going to be a question of whether alternate art certain styles. I think they're going to try and push styles of our alternate art designs, right? Because if we take a look at like gold cards have been around since, technically speaking, going back to the black and white era. Black and white era was the first ever gold cards were introduced. So if you really want to talk about how long gold cards style of art have been around, it's been a while, right? It was only rainbow cards that were here for temporary, and they were around for still 2 generations. They were around for Sun and Moon and for Sword and Shield before people were like, rainbows are kind of just move on from rainbows. But golds people like. Gold's been around for a while. I'm just saying, aren't they the ones doing the bundles? Okay, so they are the ones doing the bundles, Joaquin, but that's because Pokemon is forcing them to do it. So how it works is Pokemon says, I want to push Scarlet and Violet base set product. If you want to, we're going to reprint Lost Origin and Silver Tempest. If you want to get access to Lost Origin and Silver Tempest, you also have to buy Scarlet and Violet booster boxes. And so that is what the Pokemon Company does to distributors. Distributors are then required to pick up that product, and, well, what do you know? They're going to have to pass that bundle on to us retailers, and then us retailers have to pass that on to that bundle onto you guys or not. You know, that's just it. It's just Pokemon Company bundling distributors bundling us, and us bundling you. It's just the way in which the system goes, because Pokemon wants to push their competitive game. Right? That's the reality of the situation. They want to push their competitive game so that they can have a place for people to play at game stores. And Scarlet and Violet base has a lot of competitive cards, and they want to push those competitive cards. And Lost Origin and Silver Tempest also has competitive cards, right? These are all sets that have competitive cards, and the Pokemon Company wants to really put an emphasis on trying to push that. That was a painful laugh. What did I... Is it... I do this, like, weird scoffing laugh thing, and it's not even, like, fake. It's, like, legit. Like, I just do, like, a weird, like... I don't even know what it's called. Hey there. I want to work for you as a thumbnail designer. Well, feel free to message me if you have any questions about that. But if I'm being completely honest, I highly doubt it, just because the guy that I have currently doing thumbnails for me, I'm very happy with as it stands right now. It seems as if they've been trying to flush out the flippers by raising prices and make everything so easy to pull. But I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, flippers are going to be around regardless of if the pulls are easy or not, and if the prices are higher or not. Because if product prices are higher, but there's still high demand items that people are picking up, even if prices are higher, then scalpers are going to scalp. I want to open a shop up. How much money is that? A lot. I mean, you have to think, what's your general overhead? I mean, I'm looking at trying to get a shop right here in Arizona right now, right? I have one in Oregon. I want to get one in Arizona. Shop overhead. I mean, just to find a place that's like 1,200 square feet, like tiny shop. You're having to fork out at least $2,200-$2,300 to live in like a ghetto area. Like, you're talking, if you want to be in a decent area where you're not going to get robbed at gunpoint, $2,500 plus. Just for that. A month, right? So you have to think about overhead expenses. Then you have to think about general setup. All right, you're going to need some glass panes. Like, you're going to need some shelving. You're going to need some product. I mean, I would say overall, all in all, you're at least going to want to start out with $50K, right? At least $50K. I mean, a large portion of that, I will say, like 15 to 20 is going to be just setting up the like actual location of the storefront, and then the remaining amount is going towards the product that you need to stock the shelves and keep in supply. But yeah, that's kind of it. Why does Pokemon need to come out with so many different products? Every set seems to increase production cost. I definitely think that Pokemon... See, it's so funny. Like, I feel like Pokemon never can find that happy medium. It's very rarely they can find it. Now, whether it because people are going to complain one way or another, or they generally just can't find it, it's always funny to witness, because you've got people complaining about a year or two ago, hey, we're not getting any product. Where's our reprints? Stuff's not getting product, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, now here we are, where we're getting a crap ton of product and multiple different reprints. I mean, we had Astral, Brilliant, Lost Origin, Silver Tempest, Crown Zenith, all getting reprints, right? Everything 2022 related booster box releases and like specialty like reprinted. So it's funny to see how that's kind of done a 180, and now people are like, oh my God, there's so much coming out at once. It's, and on top of that, it's all tied into Scarlet and Violet, and people are like, Scarlet and Violet? Nope. No, thank you. What if they try to make great sets and it did turn out so well? We are basically saying the problem is the lack of hype in the sets. Hold on, let me read that one more time. What if they tried to make great sets and it did turn out so well? Are you basically saying the problem is the lack of hype for the sets? I guess the problem that I'm making, Electric, is that if you look at the history of the last 4 generations, the Pokemon Company has done the exact same thing, and I've shown this before many times again, but we'll show it again. So when it comes to here, I'm gonna have to move my mic so I don't just get out of frame. When it comes to Pokemon, how have they always done things? They always had, within the first 3 sets, a Charizard set. We had Obsidian Flames, a Charizard set. Champion's Path and Darkness Ablaze more particular, a Charizard set. Burning Shadows, a Charizard set. Flash Fire, a Charizard set. And so with that, having there be an extremely consistent pattern where it's just another Charizard set, it's just another regular, secondary bait. I mean, very much so, like, when looking at Rebel Clash or Guardians Rising, like, other than, Furious Fist, all these, like, second sets too have just been lackluster performers on top of the Charizard set. So the point that I'm making is Pokemon needs to change that. They can't just come every new generation. Like, after Scarlet and Violet's done, there's going to be a new generation, and we know that one of the first 3 sets is going to be a Charizard set, because that's what they've done for the last 4 generations. And I think that it's just, they need to change it. They just need to change it because it becomes predictable, and it causes people to leave out of the market because it's just them force feeding us Charizards, hoping that people are going to buy the product, even though there's nothing good outside of it. So don't think of it as, Pokemon, they need to create more hype sets. It's more or less, they need to create decent sets that are not going to have to rely on the bundling of other product. The Pokemon Company is the one, like I said before, that said distributors need to buy Scarlet and Violet base if they want Lost Origin Silver Tempest. So it's not one of these things where, the Pokemon Company is short printing these sets because they realize no one wants them and they're just not going to push them. No, the Pokemon Company doesn't give a crap. They realize what's high demand, and they're going to push that with lower demand sets so that they can have people eat it. So it's not necessarily we need the most super duper hype set of all time, everything's going to the moon, but what we do need is a set that the Pokemon Company can push without needing it to bundle with Sword and Shield era product. That's the problem. When you start telling me that they can't sell Scarlet and Violet product unless they're bundling it with the previous generation because no one cares about your crap product, that's when it's a problem. That is the issue. All right, where am I next? What do you think the 7 through 9-ish set? I agree the pattern exists. Do you think we can predict the 7 through 9 set as being high quality, high desirability? I think the shiny set is going to be a high desirability set. I think that is I think that's a good one. I, honest to God, believe that, I could be wrong, I think it's going to, I don't know, man. Actually, you know what? Here's the deal. I think that it's going to be good because this is all hypothetical, right? I think they're going to go with a half shiny, half alternate art set for the next one. Regardless of whether it's going to be all Paldea Pokemon or not, they're going to have a really cool art design that I think is going to do well long term. Is the Secret Lab chair any good? Yes, it is. I like the Secret Lab chair. I got it as a Christmas gift from my fiance. Hey Eli, is limited on the allocation sheet the closest thing we have to a notification for an item being close on being sold out? I'd hate to promise a customer item I can't fulfill. Thanks. So first and foremost, Fernando, in terms of limited, it just means that the distributor is only allowing you to pick up a certain amount each week. It doesn't necessarily mean they're low on stock. It just means they're limiting you. There's been items where it'll be on a limit for a while and then it's just not selling and they'll open up the limit. But honest to God, what I think, Fernando, the most important thing that you need to do if facilitating with your customers, and this is what I did to start my business successfully, is you tell them, here's the list of product that I have available. I am going to put in that product on a list. If you want that product, don't send me money yet, but if you want that product, let me know. I will lock you in for it. And once I've received the product, then I will require payment. Can you agree to this? And then the answer is yes, then cool. The answer is no, then no, I'm not going to do business with you. Because you want to have a facilitation in which if that product becomes available. Now, I understand if that's a conversation where it takes over a month for your product to get fulfilled, then things could change. But also at the same exact time, I feel like people need to understand that there's always things going on in the back end that it's not being shown, right? Like the amount of times where I will call a rep and a customer will be like, hey, Eli, I've had this item on order for the past week. What's up? Why can't I order it? And it'll be one of these things where I talk to my rep and I will try and order a certain quantity of product because a lot of people want that specific product and they need to give me the okay for me to do that, right? Because if I want to order 120 cases of V-Striker tins, then they're going to need to talk to the higher ups to confirm that one place can go buy that many. It sounds like the dumbest thing because it is the dumbest thing. Why do I need to wait 3 days, 4 days, however many days to get approval to buy product from you guys that you have on open order? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of those things behind the scenes. I almost wonder, Alfred, since you're here, if we should have like a placed but waiting on distro status. I don't know. Just so that people know that it's not me just like waiting till last second to place your order. Like it's one of these things where there's a lot of times like distro is just kind of making me wait. Like I have some product that I wanted to place on Friday and my rep said he was going to get back to me today because he didn't know an answer on Monday that I'm trying to figure out, hey, am I good to order this product? Yeah, let me see if you can get that many of that product. And I'm like, gosh dang it, dude, really? So regardless of whether you were doing it through the program or you had your own distributor, unless, it is a little different though, because since you are ordering or since I'm ordering large amounts of quantities, it's not just taking in your orders into consideration. It's also other people's, right? But that's just how it is. I've never won a giveaway, but it's because I don't enter. What the frick, Alfred? What a hater. You could have won, dude. Purposely rig it now that you win. No. So you should strike boxes worth the pickup at 119. Great price if you can pick it up for 119. What's up, Wrath? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Alfred is indeed the man. All right, everyone's over here like, I've never won. All right. We gotta address that then for a lot of people. You saying 151 is worth waiting on from an investment standpoint? Probably don't pay the pre-sale prices. Oh yeah, no question, Jonah. Are you kidding me? It's gonna be dumping in November. Black Friday is going to be crazy. It's going to be so crazy how many cheap opportunities there are going to be. I can't wait for this Black Friday. I'm going to need to just save up some money. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to need to save the bag because we're going to have so much. Have you opened much Obsidian Flames? Wondering what the chase rates are. Okay, so I have not opened a ton of Obsidian Flames. I wish I would have opened up, but we had, speaking of distributors, we had some delays with receiving Obsidian. So I was, however, able to get my hands on 2 booster boxes, and I pulled the Charizard in both booster boxes. So I am 2 for 2 so far on booster boxes, and I can't really speak to more than just that. So what's up, big dog? Just now tuning in. Thanks, Steve, for stopping by. Wrath OF here. I feel dumb after buying Case Silver Tempest booster boxes for $6.90 after this God box find in lunch boxes. It's probably going to tank in value a lot. LOL, shake my head. No, I don't think it is, Travis. A lot of people need to understand that just because of a large amount of packs and the prices for singles crashing on a specific item doesn't mean it's going to correlate. If there is an Elite Trainer Box reprint, booster boxes are not going to dump. That's just not how it works, right? If there's a special item that says that singles are going to have a higher pull rate, that doesn't all of a sudden mean that because the singles are cheaper that people don't want booster boxes. People want booster boxes for more than just the purpose of opening. They want them for collecting. And they want them for investing. That's an aspect that you can't really put a value to in the same way when it comes to singles, right? And it's also deflationary too. As more items get opened of booster boxes, the the scarcer it is, the higher value it becomes. So that's something you need to always take into consideration. And in particular, taking a look at examples such as Evolutions, which was a booster box set that got printed in the ground, singles have still, I mean, whether you want to say it's recovered or not, they're dirt cheap still for as old as it is. And it's like an $800 booster box. So Iowa, nice area, $1,500 a month for a small room. Nice place, $900. Well, I guess the question is with that is, are you talking about commercial retail location? Because it has to specifically be a commercial retail location. And then second off, are you looking at commercial prices online and including triple net? Or are you looking at the just base price? Because there's a lot of things to consider when coming into that. Because I thought it was a lot cheaper until I realized there's a lot of hidden fees for commercial real estate with triple net fees. And it is expensive. What's up, TT? Good to see you, brother. Twitter's been stepped up, I see. Yes, sir. Hey, we're trying to get better quality content. I'm trying to do my best. Literally, thank you guys for those of you that are in the Patreon program. Obviously, I know you're there because you get a ton of value out of it. But for myself, you've helped me be able to increase the quality of production for the channel. So I can't thank you guys enough. What's up, Ripper? Thanks for stopping by, brother. I appreciate it. Why don't people talk about the quality of seal production? Trash centering, trash whitening. I would disagree with that. I mean, it's funny because as someone who's been in the hobby for a while, I can tell you that the quality is really good compared to the past couple of years. If you look at black and white, diamond pearl, XY era, there were terrible. And the first half, arguably, of Sun and Moon era, print qualities were atrocious, like so bad. And if you look at Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet era, the print quality has drastically gotten so much better. And the back half of the Sun and Moon era. Like before, it was one of these things where you had a ratio where there were so many more 9s than 10s, but now it's the complete inverse because of how much easier it is to get a 10 with these cards. I know every so often we'll get like a set like Lost Origin where the cards will be faded, or certain reverse holos will just have random whitening like with Fusion Strike consistently, and it's just frustrating, but people don't realize how production quality for these cards has always been a major issue, and it's just now starting to get better. And when you compare it to previously, before, it's a night and day difference. Where am I? It's not the quantity of packs that is the suspect. It's the hype of the boxes they put them in. Sure, do reprints, but don't have 15 different packaging forms per set like a gazillion V boxes. Fair enough. All those Charizard sets you mentioned perform pretty well long term. Yep. No, 1,000%, Zach. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I made a video like 2 or 3 weeks ago about Obsidian Flames saying that I think it's still going to perform extremely well long term. Right? I'm going to hate on it in the short term because I think it's a terrible set. But because it does have a Charizard and there's long-term nostalgic Charizard collectors, it will do good long term. Oh, where do you see whatnotters dumping Pokemon products when they leave the platform? You know, it's a good question to ask there, Hermit, because I am curious about it. I do know someone that literally does whatnot bounties, and that's all they do. And I don't know. He's ready to give up throwing the towel, is what it sounds like. So I don't know what else to say other than a lot of them are just gonna hoard their product and try and sell it someplace else. I mean, there's always going to be a platform that people can do it, or those that are going to need to adapt. But I don't see it being this thing where it's like people are just going to mass exodus leave and just dump all their product for cheap. Like, they're going to find a way to sell it elsewhere. Everybody swears these Pokemon grows by seeing the similarity between Darkness Away. Let me read that one more time. Everybody swears their Pokemon gurus by seeing the similarities between Darkness Ablaze and Obsidian Flames. Well, that's the thing, Steve, is it's like I've said this for the longest time about anything having to do with history repeating itself. I am not a genius for looking at a set and saying, hey, does anyone else notice how there's been a Charizard set from every generation over the past 4 generations and they all look really similar? Like, it just takes me going to TCG Player and just looking down the list and just noticing a pattern. Same thing goes with reprints. Same thing goes with set cycles. It's like when people are like, Eli, how are you able to predict when someone's never going to get a reprint ever again? It's like, all right, well, it's no longer in rotation. Holy crap, how did you do that? Big brain predictions. It's like, no, that's just how it's been literally every time. Sounds like a comic book pull list. It's been a while since we talked about it, but what are your thoughts on the current state of the economy and where we're headed? I'm really nervous. If I'm being 100% honest, I am extremely, extremely nervous. Now, maybe that's because I'm a nervous person, and when things seem to be going well, I immediately start to stress out. Because when Warren Buffett says, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful, it's hard for me not to be fearful. Because you keep hearing economic reports talking about inflation, talking about GDP, and all these things that, are variable statistics on looking at the overall health of the economy. But what was our previous inflation, right? It was 2% year over year. We're still at about a 3.5%, if I'm correct, which at this point, the inflation rate is 90% made up of residential properties, right? And so residential real estate is still extremely high. And we're going to go into a period of stagflation due to that, in my personal opinion, right? When you take a look and say to yourself, okay, well, you have people that could afford these expensive prices at lower interest rates, but the interest rates are too high, then it turns away buyers. Then you also say to yourself, okay, well, how do we get prices to go down? Inverse. Okay, interest rates are high. That's fine. Let's lower the prices. You have to have more supply in the market. Well, why is there not a ton of supply? Because you have a lot of home buyers that bought in at lower interest rates that don't want to give up that interest rate. And so it's like you have this kind of like gridlock where you just can't get buyers to buy in because interest rates are too high, and you can't get sellers to sell because interest rates are too high. What's the solution? Lower interest rates. Inflation's still high. And on top of that too, if you do lower interest rates, demand picks up and then prices get even higher. So it's like you're in this gridlock area where no matter what you do, right? And so the only thing that can really solve this is by wages going up at this point, or by there being some reprieval in the market because interest rates are raised again, and there is such a point in which debt needs to be collected on, right? You're seeing that most recently with student loan debts. Obviously, it is no longer going to be forgiven. You're going to see a lot of individuals who had their finances put on pause have to start paying for it. You're also going to have commercial buildings, which prices for most non-retail, I would say, like really like warehouse locations, office locations are plummeting in price in a lot of areas. And stores are obviously going to hurt because a lot of them are over leveraged. And there's just a huge amount of over leveraging right now, I would say, in the economy, to a point in which when it does come due time for a lot of people to pay the bills that they can't afford to pay, whenever that exact, situation does end up happening, you're going to more than likely see that correction come first in the housing market, is what my prediction is. Now, a lot of people might say, but Eli, if you look at the GDP numbers, people are spending more than ever. But it's like GDP is such a terrible metric of statistic to tell you the health of the economy, because GDP just tracks overall spend, right? If, for example, I have an apple and I'm selling you an apple for $5, and people are like, yo, I like that apple at $5. 10 people go buy that apple at 10 people go buy that apple at $5, right? Now, if I say I'm going to bump that apple up to $55 and some idiot buys it for $55, then it's like, okay, well, I have a 10th the amount of customers. Arguably speaking, I had to do the 10th the amount of work to sell it, but more or less that doesn't generally equate to the value proposition that more people are able to afford things within the economy. It just means that prices for certain specific items have gotten more expensive. And if someone really wants an apple that bad, they're going to have to pay that premium because I upcharged it, right? And that's what you're kind of seeing more or less in the United States economy, where people are picking and choosing certain things that they can afford to pay for, whereas they weren't previously, because they're having to fill the void of paying more for gas, for groceries, for utilities, for rent. Like, things are just so much more expensive. And because things are so much more expensive, people are going to have to spend more to survive, right? That's just it. The general necessity value proposition has gone up, right? For me, I feel like if you really want to talk about a general metric, economically speaking, you want to look at the supply side of economics and what the general luxury expenses are being attributed into the economy, right? How much money are people spending on frivolous goods and services, right? Taking out general necessity of product when trying to look at overall, quote unquote GDP. But that's kind of where I am. At the end of the day, I see people constantly making predictions that the economy is going to crash. It's going to be '08 over again. I don't have a crystal ball. Do I think that's going to happen? Well, people have been predicting that since 2016. It still hasn't happened, right? And trying to time the market and constantly just saying it's going to crash, it's going to crash, it's going to crash, and I'm wrong, then I'm just wasting my time, right? And I'm just being frivolously arrogant for no reason. So for me, my strategy, or what my approach is to not over leverage myself like a lot of people are in the market. Just because you're someone, right? And this is just me learning from my parents. When '08 did happen, the thing that killed them the most was over leveraging. They went from owning a really nice house, which they had 100% paid off, to then saying, we're going to have kids and family, we're going to upgrade. And although they could afford it during the time after the economy crashed, they couldn't afford it, right? They were living above their means once the general price point of what everyone's salaries went down because of economic turmoil. And so for me, the last thing I want to do is get comfortable because things are looking good right now and say, I want to, for example, perfect example, I want to buy a home in the next year and a half, 2 years. I've been saving up to buy a home. My price point right now for a home is roughly around $500,000. That's kind of what's the middle class household price in my area. Now, if, let's say hypothetically in the next 6 months, like my business continues to do really well, am I all of a sudden like, whoa, I'm doing really good. I got more money if I want to go get a home that's worth $800,000, right? Do I take all that money down and I just go get a bigger home with a bigger mortgage and I can afford it, right? Things are going well. I can afford it. Well, let's say that, 6 months after, a year after, 2, 3 years after, things stop going well. I'm now left holding the bag with a huge mortgage and my general income has shot down by 50%. Now, can I afford it? More than likely not. I over-leveraged myself. I have a set price in mind of what is financially realistic to me, and it's one that I can afford while being comfortable. I don't need to always get the next best thing because I have the money to afford it. Just because the newest iPhone comes out doesn't mean I always have to get the newest iPhone, right? Now, will I get the newest iPhone if they're doing a sale where I traded my old iPhone for a new one? Of course, right? It's free. Or if there is a home that I can get that's larger, but I can refinance at a lower interest rate, and it allows it to where I can get a bigger home for the same price as my previous mortgage at a higher interest rate, then of course we can look into that too. Or I stay comfortable and live in the home that I'm in right now, refinance it, but maybe housing prices have gone down at that point. My point is, it's better to play the game where you're conservative and you are just not, and you're living within your means and you're not over leveraging yourself just because of short-term prosperity, versus you're just trying to be conservative on what the future is going to look like. And then finally, when it does you know, eventually come in a downturn, because downturns happen. It's just in every market. You're going to be prepared with money on the sideline, with being frugal to take advantage of that opportunity rather than being the person that was over leveraged and is overpaying for now what the economic turmoil has caused to be put upon you. But yeah, that's just kind of my general approach that I am trying to look at things. General advice, not related to Pokemon, but I apologize. I went on for a while there. I think the tarot cards just sucked. Paradox Pokemon have ugly names. The illustration rares and special illustration rares are so sick, though. So for me, I don't really care about the names. I wish I... Like, for me, I'm like, how's the art look? Does it look cool? Sick. I like it. That's kind of it. I mean, that's really it for me. Obviously, I hate the tarot hats. Tarot hats are stupid. So... I think Paradox could be a cool concept. I mean, honest to God, though, the most frustrating thing I would say for myself, pre-orders are available right now for Paradox. So if you want to actually be able to pre-order at wholesale, which is $93.50 right now in the program, then I would join the program to get access to Paradox for extremely cheap, right? But the deadline for that is August 30th, which is annoying because we won't know what's in the set until September 20th, 21st, 22nd, right? For the first set. And then the second set we won't know about until October. Like, we don't know what a lot of the cards are going to be in this set. So we're just hoping that it's going to be good, which, like, we're going to discuss in tomorrow's video. I have beliefs as to why it could be a good set. I can't see bundles going away. It's a risk mitigation technique to pass along responsibility to move product. Yep, and if it starts from the top. If it's an open order and marked as placed, we'll assume you're waiting on distro. Fair enough. Elite Eli, thank you so much. Thank you, Fernando. Appreciate the support. Black Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Heck yeah. You're going to do an OF pack opening. So Wrath, I can't I can't say that I'm gonna do a pack break necessarily. I mean, maybe if that's something you guys want, but here's the deal. I bought a large amount of build and battles for Obsidian Flames because typically on release week for Obsidian Flames, it tends to do extremely well because the promos are worth so much money. And so for myself, I did the math. If you buy Obsidian Flames based promos right now, I mean, technically speaking, if you sell them on eBay right now, you can make so much money off the promos, right? But I'm going to sell them on TCG Player because I'm just a TCG Player guy, right? But the price is, I did the math for the bulk and the promos and everything is going to equate to me basically having to break an EV of over $1.58, I think is what we calculated, Alfred, for an Obsidian Flames pack. So for myself, which would I rather sell off? Obsidian Flames pack for $3 or open 1,000 Obsidian Flames packs, hoping that I at least get over $1.50 in value? I'm going to open the 1,000 because it's fun, right? So for me, that's more or less what I'm going to likely do for if you guys are interested, and then that's something I could record. I'll probably have my buddy Colton help me like he did with Paldea. But my new thing that I do is whenever build and battles come out, I just open them up and I just sell off the promos because they're usually worth so much money out the gate. Also, there's nest balls as well, so it's pretty nice too. It's like a way for me to open cards for like cheap because I can just sell off the bulk, right? Took me 3 booster boxes to pull the SR chart. I'm over here like, yeah, I pulled it twice for 2 boxes. Jeez. Do you believe Pikachu Rainbow Rare from Vivid Voltage will do well long term? Yep, I do. I do indeed. Thanks, Eli, for showing the actual numbers. Yeah, I got you. Danny Phantom just made a video that contradicts your ST logic. Oh, the Silver Tempest logic about the prices for the booster box dropping. I will watch that video and I will see, because I would like to see if what it's actually saying is going to contradict my logic. I'll have to watch the video because I'm doubtful that the video itself is contradicting my logic. Because, I mean, we have so much price. I mean, I could be wrong, right? I could be wrong. Maybe the video does. But I feel like a lot of times people will say that, and then I look at the video and it's taken out of context and it's not contradicting my logic. Or it's one of those things where I go and I watch the video and I'm like, what? That's weird rationale. If you guys want to, we can watch the video. But, no, we're here for Q&As. We're not here to watch someone else's YouTube video. I'll watch it, and if you care to hear me respond to it, I can on Thursday. But it'll be interesting to see what's with that. But like I said, Evolutions. Take a look at Evolutions. It's a prime example. Take a look at Vivid Voltage. It's a prime example. A lot of these products got printed into the ground, and the booster boxes are still doing well. So if Pokemon is always following a default product line, when going into a new era, like you said, what do you think why do you think they don't adapt? And the Sword and Shield era was great early, SV isn't. They just need to make first half generations great. And I think that, I could be wrong, I think that the reason why they do this is because it makes the second half feel so much better. But I hate that as a selling method because then it makes 151 seem like it's such a better set than it actually is. Because 151 is not a bad set. It's a good set, but it's such a like night and day better set than anything we've gotten from Scarlet and Violet, the first 3 sets, that it makes it feel like it's even better than it actually is. Do you believe Pikachu VMAX Rainbow? Already answered that question. On another, 151 will be a hype set, but I don't think Rift will be as popular. We won't know until we honestly see what's in the set. Right? That's the biggest thing. When we know what's in the set, we'll see if there's hype. But as far as it goes, the set comes out in November. We won't know until the rest of the set is revealed in Japan in October, which is still a ways away. Eli Rock right now, I'm buying Billion Stars, Champions Path, Fusion Strike. Then in a few months, a lot, LO and ST. I appreciate, once again, the support. I would say that right now, I don't think your strategy is bad by any means. But if it were me, I'd be doubling down more in LO and ST right now, just because prices are still correcting. All right, so I'm behind on messages, so I'm pretty sure I already answered Agent Crypto's message about the economy. But Pokemon is currently pushing product can combat inflation, follow the trend, think evolving skies, always do the math. Also, Hidden Fates is a good set. It's an amazing set. I think it'll do extremely well long term. I think it's one of the best sets of all time. Properties is still high and inventory is still piling up from these developments that started during COVID. Well, I think that also depends where you live, though, because I know where I live that, builders were unable to keep up with the demand. And now they're starting to finally slow down on building, which is bad though, because they're not building because there's not demand, but also it's like, why would there be if interest rates are high, right? The only time that there was demand with builders is when things looked like they were starting to take a dive and builders said, we'll give you a 2% discount on your interest rate if you go build with us. And then boom, prices shot right back up real quick. I heard October is when the United States is going to a dark place. Someone said something like that, but you know, like I said, you can't just predict doomsdays scenarios. It's just when it all happens, it'll all happen. Housing market will attract eventually. Eli Spin Facts, look at empty office space in San Francisco. It's crazy. The office spaces are crazy right now. GDP uses Google Forms and Sheets to track spend. That's so funny. I like that. Oh yeah, we're definitely not going into a depression by any means, or at least I don't think so. I think stagflation is more likely. I'm curious how the rental market will be. Credit card debt is at an all-time high, and rental rates have been rising like crazy. On top of that, jobs are hard to come by, and people are priced out. Well, it's interesting because I think that jobs are easy to come by. I think a lot of people just don't like to work. And this may sound like a hot take, and people might get pissed by me saying this, but as a business owner, I'll tell you what, it is so hard to find good work. It is so hard to find good work. And as someone who was employed before I did this full time, there was a lot of job opportunities. Like I would go into places for jobs, and I'm not talking obviously like bachelor degree type jobs, right? I'm talking like middle class jobs, or I'm talking about like, you know, industry jobs, right? Retail. I'm talking service industry, like jobs that you can still make a respectable living doing. There was a ton of availability. And for example, like UPS drivers, USPS drivers, there's such a need for drivers right now when it comes to the shortages. And I've had multiple buddies who have gotten jobs working at USPS that make $40 an hour. That's respectable at USPS, right? And so for me, it's like, and maybe that's just because how I am as a person, like I'm really good at finding the opportunities. Like that's just one of the best things I would say I'm really good at. I see a lot of jobs that pay really well that a lot of people are just not wanting to work, whether that be because people got really comfortable over COVID, or whether it be because a lot of people realize that you only need to work part-time and the rest of it can be paid off through the government social security net. But like, if you look at the overall rate of unemployment and you look at a lot of the studies that they've been talking about when it comes to the overall increase rate of unemployment, it's not one of these things where it looks as if it's an attribution to people not finding work, but unemployment is just based on the fact that a lot of people just decide they just don't want to, right? And then for those that do, like I said, it's hard to find good work. And don't get me wrong, like you're always gonna have your corporations that are never paying enough, yada yada yada. Like I understand that, right? You're gonna always have that, but there's also gonna be those people that are gonna be asking for more than what they're actually worth. There's a finite balance, right? Like I understand if you're like, yo, I want to enter into an entry level job. I just got out of college. Can I get into an entry level job? And they're like, yeah, of course. We need a bachelor degree in whatever it is you want. You're like, solid, I got that. And they're like, and we need at least 5 years experience. And you're like, this is an entry level job. How am I supposed to get 5 levels experience? Well, you can work for us for free. And you're like, go freak yourself. Of course not. Like jobs like that are definitely a problem right now, more or less. I think that it's interesting enough to say, but I feel like because of just how things are right now in the state of college degrees, I think that's where the biggest problem is when it comes to job opportunities, because it's just everyone has a degree these days. And so the value of the degree is just so much less thereof. But I don't know, maybe it's a hot take. Hey, thanks, CSD. Appreciate the support. Salmons really hasn't made much success in cards so far, but hoping for Roaring Moon does better. Me too. Oh yeah, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe as well if you want to enter into giveaways, or if not, just leave a like to support the channel and support the video. I appreciate everyone. I think we all thought Terra hats upon initial leaks were a fan-made joke. It's sad to say, but you're 100% right. Not the first time people put money blindly in Pokemon, you know? Very true, Alfred. Very true. No Master Balls in English 151? Really? That's annoying. Do you think it's worth trying to sell build and battle bulk without TCG Direct? Well, here's the deal, Alex. If I'm being 100% honest, I don't think Direct is that useful for Pokemon. I think it can be useful for Pokemon, but I think that if you're really talking about where the Direct volume is coming from, it's Magic. So when it comes to Pokemon bulk, Direct is about 50 to 40% volume, and envelope orders are like 50 to 60% volume versus Magic. It's like 70 to 90% Direct and like 30 to 10% envelope. And the volume is so high with Magic. So I don't think it really matters that much. Should you use it if it's an option? Yeah, of course. You should always use Direct if it's an option, but I wouldn't say that it's a necessity. It's just an added luxury. It doesn't contradict the logic. It shows another viewpoint on how to know and utilize product knowledge. Oh, cool. Got a jet. Thanks, Eli. Well, thanks for stopping by, Don. FOMO is upon us. Paradox Rift might also take a sales hit due to 151 coming out. That will be interesting to see, for sure. I want to upgrade to a home, but I'm not giving up a 3% fixed rate. And Tactical is exactly one of the people that I'm referencing and why there's a housing inventory issue. Purchased a home in November for $750 when the best of luck. Wish you the best of luck in your hunt. Been remodeling for the last year. Remodeling and home ownership is expensive. Well, I appreciate that, Sergio. Yep, it's a stressful thing, man. It's a stressful thing. And the problem is I like to put myself on a timer because I need to always be pushing myself with flames underneath. But it's stressful to say the least. It's stressful. Especially too as a business owner. Oh, they don't like to look at my income if I'm not taking profits. How much did you make last year? I actually lost $10,000, but I can put 50% down. Where's all this money coming from? Are you a drug dealer? I sell Pokemon, you know, like jokes like that. Yeah, I'm obviously being hyperbolic. I can't put 50% down. I wish I could, but you get my point. I work for $10 an hour. I mean, here's the deal, man. When you can go to McDonald's, which, honest to God, no one wants to work at McDonald's. No one does. But you can go to work at McDonald's for 20 plus an hour, 20 an hour, 22 an hour. How do you compete with that? Like, I don't think people realize how much 22 an hour is. Like, obviously, there's taxes and there's other things associated with that, right? But 22 an hour is still $45,000 a year. I understand that inflation has gone up drastically and wage growth has also gone up drastically. And the cost of rent compared to overall generated income has gone up drastically. But I guess my point is, at least from both in Oregon and Arizona, the two places that I've lived, finding a place where you're making at least minimum 25 plus an hour is super easy. I did Panera 10 years ago. Job still available. Thanks for the response. My logic is that I'll have 3 to 6 months before ST and LO correct. So getting on an older set now. Hope I don't miss the boat on STLO. Well, just pay attention, player. Definitely pay attention to the prices and then just, correct from there. What's up, average player? Good to see you as always, brother. Hopefully all is well. Anything exciting with you? Office REITs are getting slammed. Dude, I wish I could just run a storefront out of an office location. Could you imagine? Ugh. But sadly, Magic won't ship to me. Um, 151 in September, CZ reprints in October, Paradox Rift in November. No one has money to buy everything. If it ain't remote work, paying $100K with no education needs to be full benefits enough downtime to flip Pokemon. I don't want it. Herman gets it. Someone say taxes? I said this time and time again, people try and flip as a side hustle should almost just take more hours at their work. I think that, to be honest with you, it really, and I was having this conversation with my fiance last night, actually. I think that you really have to find what you're passionate about and determine whether it's something that you're passionate about. And you might say, Eli, that makes zero freaking sense. Okay, well, let me explain. A lot of times, right, people will love something. And then when they make it their job, they realize they don't love it anymore. Is it that they loved it because they loved what it was in the moment? Or is it something that they fell out of love with because things changed? Right? And more or less, a perfect example that I gave, right, is back when I was like in high school. I always thought that I wanted to be pro at video games because I was really good at video games. I mean, I still am, but I'm not playing nearly as much as I was when I was a kid. It was like 8+ hours a day, right? Versus now it's like, I don't know, 2 hours on a good night if I'm free, 3 days a week. But it was one of these things where there was multiple games. Like, I think I've talked about this before, Hearthstone. I was ranked 12 on the server at one point, and I played against all the pros. And I was friends with some of the pros because I was just that good. And it was one of those things where when I played during the heyday of the game, I loved it. I loved League of Explorers and some of the amazing sets. But then when the meta changed and I no longer was having fun, I asked myself the question, is it something that I love because I love it in the moment and what it is, or is it something I'm going to love regardless? And that's something that you won't have control over if you make it a job. If I say Call of Duty, Black Ops 2 is my favorite Call of Duty ever. I love Black Ops 2. It's amazing. It's the best. I want to play pro Call of Duty, and I'm so good at Black Ops 2. But then they come out with a new game, and you're like, man, I hate Call of Duty Ghost. If you're a professional Call of Duty player or content creator, you're still going to have to make content and play the game. It's a job now. You have to. It doesn't matter whether something changes. If you're a Pokemon YouTuber and you love opening Pokemon product, but you just hate Obsidian Flames and you think it's such a boring set to open, you hate opening it, but you have to do it because it's content, right? I think that that's really what tests your passion. If there's something that changes within the market, and if there's something that changes in the market and naturally you're unable to adjust to that natural change of whatever it is that you're passionate about, can you still stick to it? Or is it one of those things that you just love in the moment because of that specific thing? Does that make sense? Like, things are ever so evolving. And if it's a career, you have to evolve with it. So when it comes to work, for people that like to flip Pokemon as a side hustle, right? It started off for me as a side hustle that turned into a full-time business because I realized it was something that I loved regardless of what things changed, right? There's certain aspects of the business that I don't like, obviously, but I can outsource a lot of those parts. But the things that I do like, that I can control, things are going to change, but I'm able to control it within my own means to allow me to continue to get excited about what I do, right? And that's what, for a lot of people that do these side hustles that they look at being potential long-term careers, right? Because I think everyone gets so lulled into the concept of you have to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of your life, but you can work a 9 to 5 that you don't really like, but it pays well, and have a hobby that you would love to eventually turn into a business, but you still need a job that can financially provide for you while you work on that hobby. And I think that potentially Pokemon for a lot of people could be that, but ultimately you will only know if you can handle it by kind of taking a little bit of a leap. Collectible. Oh, the plan is to buy CZ first since it's going to crash sooner, and then shift to 151 when its prices crash. I think this, like I said, man, all I can answer to that, Pika, is Black Friday is gonna be gnarly this year. Stroking out. Wait to have magic. Your shop has to be a specific build type. Oh yeah, buddy. If you want to have magic, it has to be strip mall retail. Yep, you can't just go get a retail or you can't just get an office location. If your hourly wage is less than your age today, you're doing something wrong. What? You know? I honestly, Hermit, don't think that's a terribly bad metric. I think you can say within $1 or $2, give or take. But like if you're 16-year-old and you're making like 20 an hour working at McDonald's, that's crazy, right? But if you're like a 24-year-old making 23 an hour, that's still respectable, right? Especially if you're in college. Flesh and blood can be a passion to be passionate about. People love their heroes. You know, I'm a fan of Flesh and Blood. Dude, I was high legend in Hearthstone too. Yeah, I back in the day, I hit legend for like 3 or 4 seasons in a row. Highest I got was legend 12. And just fell out of love with the grind. Passionate about strippers, but I can't dance. Hermit. How do you feel about gimmicks on social platforms, rip and ship, prizes, etc.? What about customers, rewards programs? I'm all for what works. Did you try any of these early on to bring client-based? Well, what I did to start my business was very simple. It was basically I looked at what I had available to sell with my distribution, and I went to Discord groups full of people that were wanting to get deals, and I said, what's a price point you'd be willing to buy this at? Here's my website. I'm going to list it at this price. Whatever it is, right? And I can only go to this low because of how much I am willing to pay. And for those of you guys that are OGs in the group, you guys remember me selling Roaring Skies or Primal Clash Sleep Blisters for like dirt cheap. Back when I was just starting off and I was like, yo, I did it, ladies and gentlemen. I made my first $30. All right. Like stuff like that. That's how you start off, is finding what people want by talking to people. That's it. Like, I feel like business is about human relationship, and I don't think you have to get more complicated than that. That's just how it is at the end of the day. The most successful people are the ones that I feel like can humanize other people. Obviously, there is a point in business where you have to disconnect that to some extent, though, because, you know, people are going to always have something to say. But ultimately, for me, it's the relationships that I've made that are what has made me successful. Shut up, Alfred. Okay, Alfred out here. I like my 9 to 5 and it pays well. Yes, you do, buddy. Yes, you do. Out here living comfy in Silicon Valley. Just rub it all in. I know your job does seem pretty sweet though, dude. I mean, heck yeah. I know a lot of people aren't built for it, but man, it's pretty nice what you got going on. I was making 16, 7.25. Shake my head. I'm confused about that. Oh, you're making $7.25 and 16. Well, that's another thing that needs to be taken into consideration as well is where you live is so different, like pricing wise. Like I remember when minimum wage in Oregon at the time was $12, and I went to Texas once to like visit and some family friends, and minimum wage there was $7.25, and I was like, whoa. Cost of living is much less, right? Cost of living is much less, but also too, a lot of people always like to look at minimum wage, but people always forget about tips. Like that's the biggest problem. I feel like people are so focused on minimum wage. We need at least 20 an hour for minimum wage. And I understand that if you're working at a place like a Regal movie theater or like a McDonald's, but if you're a server making 20 an hour, making 20 an hour, and you've got places that are having to upcharge their general like food, and you have a couple go out and they're spending at least $20 a meal, and you're getting tipped at minimum 15%, that's like a two-top. That's an additional $6. And you say to yourself too, typically speaking, on like an average day, you should really be serving at least 4 to 5 tables. And if you're saying that you're going to have multiple two-tops, multiple four-tops, like, I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, you can easily make $60 to $100+ an hour working the service industry once you start factoring in tips, what a lot of people don't like to do when talking about how you make a ton of money. Even starting off, dude, if you're not a server because you're too young to be a server, because there's certain states that require OLCC licenses, like in Oregon, where you can't serve liquor and they're looking for people that are old enough to serve liquor. If you're working as like a hostess or a busser or a service worker somewhere, like you can still end up making an additional $10+ an hour when you factor it in. I know it's not consistent, but it's still something when you average out, you make much more money with. Post-tax, I'm 20. What a broke boy. I'm glad to work with Pokemon. My parents think I'm too frugal, and I need your opinion. I freak out when I spend 20 pounds on groceries. You are not too frugal, my guy. There is no such thing as too frugal. I think that there is being OCD about it, and it was funny. I was actually joking about this too last night. So my fiance has a family friend that's getting married in October, and we're trying to go and look at the wedding. And literally, we're like doing the math of how expensive it's going to be to fly out. And we want to be there for 4 days. That's the plan, is 4 days is where we want to stay. And I'm like, but Holly, if we're there for 5 days, we save $12 a plane ticket. Sure, we have to find another place to stay for an extra day, and that might cost like $90-$100, but at least we're saving $12 on that plane ticket. All right, like stuff like that where you're like, the math ain't mathin'. Where I'm like, why am I so concerned about saving $12 for on the back end? I'm gonna have to get an extra night just to stay there, right? Like like stuff like that where you have to take it into consideration where, all right, well, you're saving on the front end, but is there a back end where you're actually wasting more time by saving, right? Like there's a reason why the direct program works so much, because you can make more money because of there being less fees using envelopes, but the amount of time it takes for you to package up envelopes and then just ship everything direct takes way less time. So I think frugalness is a good virtue. Just make sure you just don't overdo it and it becomes an OCD problem. Back when I was at Chitlin making $5 an hour as a waiter, Chitlin, Wrath, aren't you like younger than me? Tips should never be a thing. Pay your employees enough. I think Yeah, it's a tough conversation. Honestly, tips are a really hard one for myself to say because I don't know, man. I don't know. Because here's the deal. At the end of the day, if we say tips shouldn't be a thing, pay your employees. Now all of a sudden, in order for that business to survive, you're going to add at least an additional 15 to 20% on food margins. And now that server doesn't have an opportunity to make a crap ton of money. I think that this might sound crazy. At the end of the day, tips are better for people than it is, because at least with tips, there is a level of control in how much you can make versus the minute that you take tips away, there's zero control of that from a general server, right? Because here's the deal. If I know that if I serve 5 tables and I do decent service, I can make an additional $30 versus I know that my employer gets rid of tips and gives me a $3 raise, $4 raise, it's not going to matter. Not to mention, too, odds are they're going to take that percentage of tip that you would usually make and they would increase the menu by that amount, which is going to actually make it to where they're making the difference in what you would have made in tips. So it's actually going to be more money for the restaurant and less money for the worker. That's my opinion, right? What would you rather have? An opportunity to make 20 to 30 additional an hour because of tips, or get rid of tips and your employer give you a $5 raise? Like, unless we're talking dirt slow days, it's not going to be a more beneficial thing. I understand it's a cultural difference, but that's just the reality from a financials perspective. I'm not saying that the tip system is necessarily like here nor there. I'm just saying that as someone who's worked in the service industry for like, oh God, when did I start? I worked in the service industry for about 7 years. And I know that the minute tips get taken away, things get much worse because you're not going to get paid enough. That's all I'm saying. Like, we think it's bad until it's gone. And then on top of that too, now you start talking about what's the incentive for employees, right? Now you start to have an issue with labor shortage because tips are what keep service good, because a lot of people are incentivized to work based on how they're being paid. And if now people have their tips taken away, where instead of making an additional 20 to 30 an hour, they're making only an additional $5 an hour, and people are like, well, this is crap. Why do I care? Right? It's like, it's called the service industry for a reason, right? You need people that are going to be able to put on a face and put on a show for you. There's a reason why in the industry there's a thing called a server voice. Hi, how are you doing today? Oh my God, that's so great. Tips go a long way. Someone hit the super chat. Hey, Irma gets it. I love tips. Tip me, guys. No. Buy my SD silver boxes. When I went to Europe, it felt so good not to have tips to exorbitant amounts. That's because the staff gets paid a decent wage. I'm curious, average player, in your country, what is the minimum wage? I'm actually curious. Went to Japan is actually an insult to tip the staff. When did tipping on an order become a thing? Oh my God. I think tipping to go. Okay. So you want to talk about where it is out of control? Here's the deal. And I think people might be not misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm talking about if you go to a sit-down restaurant and you have a server that gives good service. That's what I'm talking about. If I am going to a food truck where you've got an iPad put in my face and they're like, here, feel free. And the options are 20, 25, and 30%. And they're just awkwardly looking at you. That is ridiculous. Okay. Like, there is 1,000% a problem with tipping. Don't get me wrong. And the level of disrespect that we have started to take with people trying to push 25% for someone who freaking flipped an iPad is absurd to me, right? When I'm talking about tips, I want people to understand the context in which I'm referencing, which is if you're a server at a restaurant. That's what I mean. Not someone who literally is you're going for an order for pickup and then they hand you the check and they're like, can we get a tip? And you're like, frick you. No, you did absolutely nothing. There's no form of service that was offered. But then there comes the argument that no one would want to work being a waiter at minimum wage, so they'd have to pay more, just paying devil's advocate. But here's the thing, though, is like we're seeing with the unemployment rate being drastically higher because people just don't want to work, what ends up happening is those server role positions will get filled by people making minimum wage without tips. And they will be part-time workers that are also being subsidized by the government. Because at the end of the day, which would I rather do? Work full-time making minimum wage at a job that isn't going to make me tips? Or work part-time at that job where I'm not being paid enough, but the government is going to subsidize me through social safety nets. And it's going to make it where I'm actually going to be making double for working half as much. There's a natural incentive for a lot of people to work part-time and live off of welfare. I can say that for certain because I have certain family members that have done that for 20 plus years of their life, and they didn't get a job until they were in their 60s, and they felt like they were doing nothing with their life after they were in their 60s. And they lived their entire life without having to pay a single dime because they just lived off of welfare. The self-checkout tick screen. Okay, I didn't even know that was a thing. There's a self-checkout tip screen? That's ridiculous. Eli doesn't... We all understand Eli now. He gets it. The QR restaurants. I guess at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, from the entire thing that I'm saying, I think people need to understand that it's not black and white, right? This is not black and white. Okay, here's something that pisses me off. Here is something that pisses me off. And you tell me, what are your thoughts on this? There is a restaurant that has a menu and it says the meal is $17. $17, right? And at the bottom of the menu, it said to ensure that we pay our employees a fair wage, we add an additional 15% surcharge to the cost of your meal. So in other words, it says $17, but it's actually closer to $21. So it's more or less, would you rather have it baked into the cake or be optional? And on top of that, they're still allowing tip as an option, but it's that's a lot to just say they're going to additionally add. I thought I never went back to that place because it pissed me off that their excuse for charging an extra 15% more. And that's, I guess, it's not black and white. Delivery should not ask for tips until the food is delivered. Otherwise, the delivery will only pick jobs that pay high tips. Yes and no, Pika. Although I agree with that, there's also a thing called the free market. And if someone wants to because you want to talk about people getting underpaid. Uber Eats drivers are definitely, and Uber drivers are not getting paid enough. It is ridiculous that they have to work on tips. I think they need to get paid more by a long shot, right? And the problem with that is that there is a way in which you can preemptively put tips. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard the term tip baiting, where they will say that they're going to tip you $5 and people will go there and then they'll take away the tip, but they use it to like bait people. And so it's like really difficult because obviously people still need to make money. And when they can't make enough because the job isn't paying them enough, which once again, I think is wrong, then they have to be able to find a way to make the most. And that's by going in and going to a place that's going to offer them the best tip. I know it sounds crappy to say, but it's like, all right, well, what do we do? Force that company to pay them more? Like, I don't know. It's effed up, man. There's so many different, I mean, here's the deal. Like I said, it's not black and white. There's so many different problems within. It's like a loop of a problem here that's different here, that's different here, right? Because we're no longer talking, we're talking problems with self-checkout. We're talking problems with iPad flippers. We're talking problems with delivery drivers, right? We're talking, like the tipping industry is so effed up, but at the end of the day, just because it's effed up in like 3 other areas doesn't mean that it still isn't something that couldn't be viable in another area. Does that make sense? Like, I think that if you're, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, if you are a service worker and you're like a little server, I think tipping is good. But if you're an iPad flipper, a self-checkout, or a delivery driver, like you could get a couple bucks tip, like you tip your pizza guy. But when I tip a pizza guy, I tip him like $3. I'm not tipping him 20%. You know what I mean? And that's because they should, realistically speaking, be paid more, right? In that instance. Because they're not offering really a service other than just driving your food. Like that's not, you didn't fill my water. You didn't, take my order. You didn't offer something that is of entertainment value. There's no minimum wage in Norway. We have a system based on unions worked with employer unions. A correct standard wage in Norway. Anyone can provide anyone's earnings. This makes sure that employer can't differentiate or discriminate. Of course, higher workspace means you're going to positions in restaurant industry. Workers have a minimum 17 an hour plus shared tip. See, I think the biggest problem, though, I would say with that average player is that Norway is sitting. Okay, so here's one thing where I feel like we can't really compare it, though, is Norway is sitting on a huge oil reserve, and so they're able to subsidize a lot of pay through government programs. Whereas the United States can't afford to do that. And if you look at the overall population of Norway in particular, it's got a population of like, can't remember. It's like 8 million, I think. 5 million, 6 million. I can't remember. But it's sub 10 million. That's all I know, right? Whereas the United States, it's 360 million. And so the problem is like the general system that you're talking about, which is, a lot of which is being fought for by union and government programs, as well as being subsidized in a lot of ways, it makes it really difficult because you can't necessarily implement that exact same system within the US, because as you start to drastically grow it on a larger scale, then it becomes extremely unaffordable. And that's kind of the most difficult thing, unless you're going to drastically raise the tax rates within the US, which please know, taxes are already as high enough as it is. If I get taxed when I'm living, dead, and breathing, it's like ridiculous, like how much you're getting taxed. Like you think the amount of like it's the funniest thing how obviously everyone's like, oh, well, at least, we don't have healthcare in our country, but at least we aren't taxing the ground. It's like, okay, well, kind of, but like, you've got income tax, you've got sales tax, you've got property tax, you've got taxes when you die, you've got taxes when you invest on your money, both going in and out. You've got taxes on like 20 different things. Like the amount of times you're taxed every which way in this country is freaking ridiculous. Right? But anyway, I digress with that. Oh yeah, forced party fees. Jesus loves me, ladies and gentlemen. Someone in food cart just made food for you though. Not sure how that is doing nothing other than hitting convenience stores. But Chris, I am saying that tipping the iPad worker who just literally flipped an iPad over. That's, I guess, my point, right? Like, I shouldn't have to tip 20% on that. But that's on Uber to pay. No, 1,000% I agree. Will someone stock those shelves? Someone unloaded the truck. Use that logic. You should always tip. Well, I tip my UPS driver. As a buyer, it's not my job to ensure employers are able to make rent at the end of the month period. It still amazes me. It's so common in the US. Still a Pokemon stream, by the way. I know. We've definitely deterred off of where things are. Unlisted Leaf just joined the chat? Oh, that's pretty cool. Well, welcome to the Pokemon stream. You probably haven't heard us talk about Pokemon in the past 30 minutes, but what's up? Thanks for stopping by. Are you here to learn about the problems with Pokemon and what they need to address? Hey, that's cool. We got Unlisted Leaf in the chat. Alfred says it's because the progressive system, a new bracket for people making more than 500K. Agree the moment a dollar space tax like 7 times. So are you thinking then that, I mean, here's the deal. I think that this is really complex. I think this is a really complex issue that we could like deep dive into hours and hours and hours on end, but it's like it's just such a difficult thing to say, right? At the end of the day, the only thing I will say is I just get fearful because just like with everything in life, the minute there's an opportunity for an employee to get taken advantage of by a new implementation of system, it is going to happen, right? That is my only fear. I know everyone likes to say, all right, take away tips, pay your employee a fair wage. You know, the minute that if that were to happen and they take away tips, then the wage labor is not going to be fairly paid and people are going to end up making less. And you might say to yourself that, oh, well, then try and regulate it. Increase the minimum wage. All that's going to end up doing is just causing, once again, the general business to pass that overhead on to the consumer, where it's no longer $20 a minimum wage. It's now 25, 26, and they're going to make it to where the average meal price is $30+. And it's like, that's just how it's always been time and time again. And it just feels like it just gets worse for the employee, right? Not to mention too, you also have to think as well that the people that are least affected by this are big corporations, because they can afford to do it. And the people that are actually hurting the most are the small businesses that can't already afford to pay their employees as it is because they're working on such thin margins. In my general hometown of Oregon, where minimum wage is like $15 right now, the general turnover rate for restaurants was exceedingly high because the margin to make money was so low. There is so little money to be made. So every time minimum wage went up year over year, it was always the small businesses that were hurt the most, and it was always the big corporations that benefited from it the most because it just meant less competition for them and they could afford to eat it, right? I'm not saying it's a good system, right? But what I am saying is that I just get afraid that everyone makes it seem it's a lot simpler than it actually is to solve. That's all I'm saying. If servers at both restaurants do the same job and service, I tip a cheaper restaurant a higher percentage and the most expensive restaurant a lower percentage. Yeah. Oh my God. It's so funny too. It's also funny too as well because we have like so many people that watch the channel outside the US. And so it's always interesting to get everyone's input on it because everyone, it's so different, right? There's so many different ways in which it's done. But yeah, I don't know. I wish I did, but thankfully I'm not a politician. I've seen whatnoppers jump to Twitch. Not sure how the logistics pan out. I mean, I think a lot of whatnotters are going to really jump to TikTok. I think that's the main thing that they're going to do. Yeah, probably. Where's the oh my God. Whoa, guys, I just lagged completely and I couldn't see any of my stuff, but where's the packs? Yeah, probably not today. So my channel, Enlisted Leaf, if you're still there watching, my channel is based around Pokemon investing content and Pokemon product that I think is a really good price to pick up on. So I don't do a lot of pack openings. Every so often I will do pack openings on set releases, or if there's ever a specialty box we ever want to open, then that's kind of our thing. But as far as it goes, we don't do a lot of pack openings compared to just talking about stuff. That's why it feels kind of weird that we like evolved on the conversation because of tipping, which is kind of funny because you wouldn't usually like see that in a content about Pokemon. You tip your UPS driver because he is dropping pallets of product at your home. My job strongly insists we don't take tips. Welcome to the party. Welcome to the party, right? Do you sell local in Arizona? I don't sell local in Arizona. I hope Paradox Rift is a great set. We need a good set in this generation. I'm hopeful it is too. Well, average player, not to get too deep into it, but there used to be a shake on hand system and now it's just a system of litigation, and it's definitely not a good cultural thing. Well, you're an employer, you have a store. People do work in that store. Are they tipped? Or is the salary burden on you to cover out of pocket? What makes it difficult in the grand scheme of things to, I guess, compare what you're saying in comparing it to something like the service industry for specifically restaurants is we're not providing a service in the exact same way, right? At a storefront, my employees are required to sell product. That's it. If someone wants to tip them, then of course, awesome. But the burden is put on me to pay them a wage in which we deem to be fair, right? And a lot of times it doesn't even feel like it's deemed to be fair. It's something that's forced to be paid upon, right? Versus with a restaurant, you've got a lot that goes into it, right? You have someone that's bussing your table. You have someone that is serving you your food. You have someone that is seating you at your table. You have someone that is making sure service is being taken care of properly, and you make sure that the food is being made, right? There's a lot of integral steps that go to that. Versus a storefront, you've got a manager, you've got someone that obviously is behind the scenes in charge of logistics, and you've got someone running the front. But in terms of the overall service aspect of what matters to you, it's mainly just the front. That's it, right? Manager can help if they need to answer any questions, but it's not in the exact same way, because it's not like you get a booster box and you go to the manager and say, "Sir, I opened this booster box and I had terrible service because my pulse sucked." Like, that's not how it works. Like, you know what I mean? But the burden is on me. And at the end of the day, because of that, there's a lot of businesses that are failing because they just can't afford it. It's just expensive. It's just so expensive. I mean, McDonald's, man. McDonald's used to be one of my favorite quick places to go to for cheap meals, because when it comes to McDonald's, I was able to go in, and obviously it used to be the dollar menu, but it was a buy one get one for $1, and it was $1.70 for McDouble, $1 for a regular McDouble. Boom. I'm paying $1 for 35 for a McDouble. Pretty decent price. Obviously, it's not $1.35. The McDouble prices are now $3.70. That's $2 more. Before, if I wanted to go to McDonald's and eat like a king, I could do it for under $10. I am now spending $20+ at McDonald's to eat as much as I used to. That is crazy. It's simple, right? What Pokemon do you want to see get into the alt art in the SV block? Oh, I mean, I would love to see a Garchomp alt art, and I would love to see a Dragonite alt art. I would love to see a Lapras alt art. I think would be really cool. I think we haven't gotten a Lapras alt art before. And a Salamence alt art would be really cool. I think there's a lot of alt arts, man. I don't see people sending tips to the people picking the coffee beans, just saying. Okay, well, that's the equivalent example, though, of like, I mean, a Big Mac costed like $10 15 years ago in Switzerland? Jeez. I think the biggest problem, though, Macy, with the argument that you're making is that storefronts are being crushed right now, specifically Pokemon storefronts, because a lot of people have that mentality, which is, I want what's the cheapest rate provided to me, and I don't care about the service that I'm paying for. Some people, although they like the service and they're willing to pay more for it, which is obviously why there's a tipping system, right? At the end of the day, if I say to myself, I want the cheapest booster box price, you wouldn't catch me dead going into a storefront, because I know that I can go online and I can buy Pokemon for much cheaper, because there is a lot bigger of a community of competitors that are going to cause the prices to be more competitive. And on top of that, there is not the same overhead, because a lot of these places can run it out of an office space. They can run it out of their home. And so they don't have the same level of overhead in order for them to survive. They have to pay employees to keep the storefront alive. So I guess the point that I'm making is the LGS model is dying for this exact reason, though. And that's the problem. Like literally right now, the only reason I am able to do what I am doing right now is because I don't have the same overhead. Sure, I have a storefront in Oregon, but that's something that I don't have to handle because my partner is taking care of that. And as we've learned through running the storefront, as it stands right now, the biggest problem that we have currently run into is the amount of money that we're losing because of employees. And you might say to yourself, well, Eli, you need to make more money by doing X, Y, and Z. But the problem is, in order for us to do X, Y, and Z, we need to have employees. It's like there's this circle of ultimately at the end of the day, how do we most automate things so that we don't have to hire employees so we can make more money because we don't have to pay people. And at the end of the day, that's more or less what's happening is people look at employees and they say to themselves, should someone really be paid $20 an hour to flip a burger? Or can I go get a machine that I can make that's going to do that for me? And I'm just going to save myself that $20 an hour. It's kind of like with sorting Pokemon cards, as you guys who do sort Pokemons know, right? Either I can go pay someone $20 an hour to sort Pokemon cards by hand, or I can have a machine do it where I just have to pay, after I've paid it off, a general $3,000 maintenance fee. I save myself $45,000 a year. That is something that is going to make it where automation is going to take over as the general cost of labor continues to go up. I'm bringing my bad boosters back to the store. Dude, I went to Subway like 2 weeks ago anyway, I went to Subway 2 weeks ago. $17 for a sandwich that usually cost me $5. Holy crap. No more Italian BLTs. Last time I'm going to Subway. $20 for McDoubles, no shot. For McDonald's, no shot. Oh, yeah, buddy. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, maybe if you eat like a freaking bird. But like right now, if I want a 20-piece McNugget and like a couple of McDoubles, I'm paying at least $15 to $20. I understand I'm a fat ass, but this fat ass still could have ate for a lot more affordably. A 6-piece chicken McNugget is like $6 to $7. Oh my God. That's crazy. I think it's like $9 for a 20-piece right now. It used to be $4 to $5 for a 20-piece. Flygon Altart, please and thanks. Yo, that would be sick. I would love to see a Flygon Altart. That's a good one. Have we gotten a Flygon Altart? I don't think we have. Online is funnier offline, I'm guessing, to your offline LGS profitability as a standalone. Basically, what's happening, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right. Is it Macy? I apologize if I'm not. So basically what's happening right now is that I run my online business separate from the storefront. So I started the storefront with my partner under the contingent agreement that I would get a small portion of equity. He would get access to distribution, and I would still be able to continue to run my online business the way I wanted to, separate from the storefront. So I'm a full-time owner of the online store and a very small percentage owner of the storefront, right? And so for myself, I still utilize the storefront though because of distribution access that I'm able to acquire through owning one, because you can get access to multiple distributors that way. However, the problem with it is that at the end of the day, what makes logistically the most sense to run a storefront is to literally go to a retail location, rent it, and not hire a single employee and just use it as a place for you to run an online business, because it doesn't make any sense trying to offer a service and hire employees because it's just too expensive. I've already run the math multiple times. I'm looking for a storefront here in Arizona to do exactly that. Now, will I set up mock tournaments to run for Magic so I can get Magic pricing? Yeah, but that's not something that's an incentive of me for the purpose of, running Magic tournaments because I'm so passionate about it. I would say that it really ultimately comes down to the fact of the matter for myself that it's just something that is not affordable if I'm going to run a storefront 5 days a week. There's just not enough revenue to be generated to stay afloat, and make real wealth. I mean, take a look at what more or less RNG Games or any other storefront in the hobby is talking about. At the end of the day, most of them are saying it's not what it seems. And most of them that are making money are making their money from selling singles online using TCG Player, and they're breaking even, best case scenario, with sealed product on the front side. Because overhead's expensive. Corn, make me self-conscious there, bro. I've never shaved it, so does that answer? I don't go out to eat anymore. I do go out to eat. I just don't eat fast food anymore. I just can't afford fast food. It's cheaper for me to go not eat fast food, especially for the quality of what I'm eating. I want to start doing that Pika Pika. I would love to start growing my own vegetables. I think that'd be cool. Hey, was just wondering how much price are the items in the 115 membership? Was seriously considered jumping in. Are there limits on how much you can buy? Okay, so don't pop believin'. I love that name. That's actually kind of cool. So in terms of the wholesale program, how it works is it's very simple. I have a list of distributors that you can order product from. As long as the product is available, you can order as much as you possibly want. There are certain products that are limited, but it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm limiting them. It has to do with the fact that the distributors are limiting them. It's not too often that they really limit items, though, I will say. It's usually like a select few, specifically like high demand items or short printed items. But for the most part, most things are pretty much on open order. In terms of the overall price that you're paying for it, it's whatever cost is for me. So cost for a booster box, $95.50. That's what I'm paying. That's what you're paying. $31.25 for an ETB. That's what I'm paying. That's what you're paying. Crown Zenith reprints, I'm paying $30 for them. You're paying $30 for them. Simple as that. That is how it works. Obviously, there's additional shipping and distro fees associated to that, which if you had a distributor yourself, you would still have to pay for it. So that is going to be taken into consideration, but it doesn't really add much in terms of general value. As mentioned before, for the program, you get access to Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh! Flesh and Blood, MetaZoo. Did I miss Yu-Gi-Oh? You get access to a lot of different products too. And what's cool about it as well is you have many different ways of making money, right? We've got people that make money off of Pokemon mystery packs. We have people making money off of Pokemon bulk. We have people making money off of sealed flip. We have people making money off of sealed Magic, sealed Yu-Gi-Oh, breaking down Magic. Like, the list goes on, the amount of creative ways you can make money. So the general kind of concept of the program is it's for either big money collectors that just want to dump a bunch of money into getting Pokemon product that they want to collect/invest in long term. But more specifically, I like to think of it as a program for those people that are either wanting to be an online retailer or have their own kind of trading card business that they can run without having to go and get a storefront, which is going to cost you, as we just discussed, $2,000 to $3,000+ a month. Wait, are we getting it for $31.25, Alfred? Oh, am I wrong? Alfred would know. He's the one in charge of the sheet. Wait, hold on one second. Now I have to know because I feel bad. Crown Zenith. Oh, we are getting it for $312.50. My bad. Oh my god, this entire time I've been quoting $30. Jesus loves me, dude. I'm off by $12. Oh, I'm sorry. Or $1. I'm off by $1.25. Oh, oh, I'm sorry. Alfred call me out midstream because I'm spreading misinformation. I apologize. $31.25. I had no clue, man. But anyway, paying $31.25 for Crown Zenith. That's a $1.25 tip, right? But yeah, so there's a ton of value out of it. But the main thing I would recommend that you can get value out of is if you're someone that wants to get into your own Pokemon business. LGS has spent 80% of their time talking about the hobby and 20% selling the hobby. Hermit just hit on the head. It's kind of funny. Throw some PB in the oatmeal. We got some football questions now. People are asking me. Awesome. Thank you. You're one of the biggest. ETB prices are nice. Crown Zenith reprints come up for orders yet. So right now with Crown Zenith, it is currently on pre-order. So in terms of pre-order pricing, like Alfred was saying, it's $31.25. How I'm going to go about it is I have no clue how much I'm going to receive from my distributor, but I'm going to allocate it out to customers based on their overall spend, but there's going to always be a floor for people that don't spend in the program. So obviously, if there's a ton of product and everyone is going to get whatever they ordered, then awesome. You can go get an absolute ton of product that you can order as much as you want. But if it's a limited product and there's only so much available, then I like to spread it around so that people are always at least able to get some of it. Eli, who should I select on my fantasy football team? Any sleepers? I'm a Khalil Herbert fan. Does that count for something? Need to expand to the Midwest. Need to expand to EU. Well, so here's the thing. Speaking of my program, is we recently, I'm excited to announce that we recently just started getting discounted rates with UPS. And before, I was using a middleman service to provide that to people outside of the U.S. And it was not as cheap as I would have liked it because they tacked on additional fees. But for me personally, now that we have that discounted rate, I'm excited to say that it could potentially be much, much, much cheaper now for us to ship outside the U.S., which I'm hoping will be a good thing because obviously I have a ton of people that live outside the U.S. that are fans of mine, and I really hate saying like, hey man, it's just expensive. Like you could join the program, just shipping's gonna kill you. But right now, like we with the discounted rates that we recently got, it makes it much, much, much more affordable for people. My thoughts on the Jets this year? I think that as long as we know Aaron's still not old like he played last year, then they've got a really good team. Ahsoka series tonight? Ooh, that'll be nice to watch. Definitely have to do that. Sometimes good deals come up, though. That is true. Program is only good if you want to run your own business. Not good if you want Pokemon product because it's allocated. Sometimes good deals come up, though. Alfred is correct. I would like to expand to the EU. I just get nervous, though, in terms of expanding to the EU because it's the EU. It's not the U.S. I know the U.S. very well. I don't know the EU very well. It's kind of like when we have these conversations and debates, which obviously we're going to go back to Pokemon. And we're probably going to wrap it up here soon because I'm already over on time. But we have our own systems that we look at and we compare to one another and we say which is better. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to say we could take each system and implement it in a different country because the culture is different, the values are different, the general regions are different. There's just so many different factors, and so it's hard to say one thing will immediately work in another place because there's just so many different variables, you know? And for myself, when it comes to running a business and, you know, opening Pokemon, I get really nervous because although I would love to at some point expand internationally, I need to create a big base here first before I do that, because that's a lot scarier when you don't know. You know, I don't got home field advantage at that point, you know? Well, the problem is though, Macy, it's both. So you're going to be paying a lot more in terms of shipping, but then on the back end, depending upon what country you live in, it is just disgusting. Think you can only avoid that by creating Pokemon EU? Oh, really? I can actually avoid it on the back end? Pokemon USA Fantasy League? Okay, that would actually be kind of fun. If I'm being honest, okay, so I know I haven't touched on football, but for those of you guys that are friends of mine, you can see the Discord channels that I'm also in if you're mutual Discord fans. And so, yes, I'm in fantasy football leagues. I'm in, and since moving, I'm trying to find like more fantasy football leagues to play in because it's lonely not having someone to watch football with. And so I haven't really done it online, but it'd be fun if we did a Pokemon USA Fantasy League. Dude, we haven't seen OG Travis in forever. I know he said he was going through some stuff health-wise. I should probably reach out to him. It's been a while. I'm holding my sealed product until the world ends, then having a big opening party. I enjoy it for the art. That's so funny. And then after you've collected it, it'll always use as a backup for fuel. How do you get the... You guys are goobers. But Eli won't have an EU distributor. Better off asking average player for EU supply. Well, that's the funny thing, though, because he was asking me for US supply because the distributors in the EU are terrible. So that's the thing. Like, there's a reason why a lot of people in Europe buy from the US. Because the prices are drastically different. It's so much more expensive. Like the amount of... So the thing is, for the people that are in the program that do live in Europe or different parts of Europe, it's like... I've talked to them and some of the things that they can charge for booster box prices is wild to me. And I'm just like, holy crap, how are you guys able to get away with charging this much? But it's like... It's a completely different market, right? Like Macy was saying earlier on when we were talking about Norway, the cost of living in Norway is higher compared to the like, how do I want to say this? It's like, perfect example for those of you guys that are in the US. It's like me living in California and looking at California wages, but looking at the cost of living of California and then moving to a place like Texas, but still making California wages. It's like, holy crap, this is so cheap. But if you live in Texas and you make Texas wages, you're like, this is expensive, right? And that's what I feel like for a lot of people that live in Europe. They look at the US and they kind of look at it in that exact same way, right? Because if you're able to, even after shipping, pay less because of how much cheaper it is, especially too because the distribution network is so much larger in the US. I mean, Europe, to my knowledge, at least from what the people have told me, right? You can come back to me if I'm wrong. Don't come at me. There's only about one large distributor versus within the US, there's like 9 different distributors. So it's massive in terms of the distribution network here. And there's a lot larger of a supply that comes out of here for that reason. No, legit, dude. It's the freaking play. It's kind of like people that are from Oregon that They will live in Washington, like they'll live in like Vancouver, but they will shop in Oregon. You get the best of both worlds, man. Don't have to pay income or sales tax. That's how you cheat the system. It's like you just take advantage of different states, different countries' tax laws compared to yours. Let's get a Pokemon League. We're side betting booster boxes now. We haven't seen a lot of the OGs in a while, too. There's constantly new faces, for sure. I have some friends who work for large type of companies. Mainland EU doesn't have a Pokemon Center website. UK was supposed to be the main hub and Brexit happened. So, yeah, supply is different. Yeah, so honest to God, if I were to be Pokemart USA EU, it would very much more than likely be I'm still getting product from the US. So I know Joker, who is a regular here, he's friends with Bake Cakes. If we don't get a Pokemart USA Fantasy League, I will be disappointed. We can make it happen. We can make it happen. I just wonder how big of a league it's going to be. That would be funny. I think it would be cool if we did a Pokemon USA Fantasy Football League. Start smuggling cards into the EU. I mean, if you really think about it, there is not really any competition, right? In the EU. If you really think about it. Like, I don't know about who your guys' largest sellers are in the EU, but at least for myself in the US, I've been doing this for about 8 months now. And considering with my one distributor, we have the third largest Pokemon supplier in the Southwest, and it took me 8 months to do it. That's kind of a joke. Like, what? That didn't take long. So I don't know how hard it is to climb the ranks in Europe, especially too considering you guys only have one major distributor, but I don't know. Like I said, man, I could be speaking out of my butt because I don't really know, but you guys obviously are the ones that educate me on a lot of this, so I usually am giving information based on what everyone here tells me. All right, folks. I'm probably going to need to wrap this up, though. I'm already over by 15 minutes, so we're going to end this conversation here with the last couple questions, comments, before we end things. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to leave a like, comment down below, subscribe. And outside of that, Patreon's the place to be if you want to get access to Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Flesh and Blood, and so much more at wholesale prices. Or if you just want to support us, and just leave a like. It always helps the video. It's not just the no major seller. It's also Walmart, Target, etc. It's basically a blank sheet. Well, and here's another question I also would want to ask, honestly, too, is what the effective tax rates are going to play into factoring if I were to run a business like that. I just get like, obviously it's a ton of research that has to be done, but you know, I would need to look into a lot of things on the distribution network, because when you think, and once again, please, for all the Europeans, don't get mad at me. I'm just an American that doesn't know the tax system in every country in Europe. When I look at the United States, right? If I'm shipping product to the United States from the United States, I don't have problems. But hypothetically speaking, I don't know the system. If, let's say I ran my business out of Switzerland, but I wanted to ship it to Germany, or I wanted to ship it to the UK, those are different countries, right? Like, I don't know if that's something that plays into effect. I don't know if there's some agreement you guys all have, because Europe is just made up of a large amount of like countries compared to the like North America, where it's just like very few countries. Like we got like 5 countries here, right? Or we've got Mexico, Cuba, Canada, US. I guess if you consider Puerto Rico, but I mean it's a territory. Probably a couple places I'm missing, but I guess you get my point. I get scared of the logistical side of that. I just pulled this card. It was intentionally left blank. Error card from LO B&B bulk. Whoa, really? Did you pin it somewhere, Alex? Great. I'm proud of you, my friend. A great channel you've created, intelligent factor. I appreciate that, man. And at the end of the day, too, when it comes to the things that I discuss, like what we obviously talked about earlier, I want people to ultimately know at the end of the day that, as you've seen many times before on my channel, I am always, always, always going to have an opinion that is going to be based in the evidence that is being provided for me. And the minute that I find out new information, or the minute something happens that changes my mind, like more statistics or facts being presented, then obviously my mind is going to change based on that. Or maybe it doesn't. The point that I'm more or less making is it's one of these things where, although this is a channel specifically talking about Pokemon, there's always things that are going to be discussed outside of it. And at the end of the day, as long as everyone is civil, as long as there's an exchange of ideas, and as long as everyone is helping share information by providing new evidence to one another, that's what more or less this channel is all about. Feel the same way about 151. It'll be more of a splash than a tsunami. Hot take. Oh, it'll be interesting to say, man. Posted in the general. This card was intentionally left blank, please. Whoa. That's really cool. Made yourself a couple $100, bro. That's pretty sweet. Eli, thanks again for constantly talking about the RQSB for your collection. It was the first product I hammered when getting into Pokemon, and they've been doing amazing. Let's actually, okay, we're going to wrap up with this because I actually want to end on a high note. So we're going to take a look at this. Because that, man, for the longest time was my favorite investment. I still love it. $43, folks. It's at $43. Ignore this. It's just literally not including the $10 shipping. So holy moly, folks. We feel good about that one. Remember when I made that call a while ago, ladies and gentlemen, when you were able to pick it up for $20 on, I think it was Amazon that was selling it for like $20? Feel good about that. I feel good about that pick. Let's go, Snoopy. Thanks for the shout out on that. But all right, folks, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys all so much for stopping by.